When I was younger, I was one of the most shy and introverted people that you could imagine. Like if I was invited to a party, I would literally sit in a corner and not talk to anybody all night long. Now, I had grown comfortable with this sense of isolation, and I was totally fine just being with myself. But today, I want to share with you how I broke out of this shell and learn how to stop being shy and introverted so that I could just walk up to any stranger on the street, strike up a conversation, and ask to take their portrait. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, the simple and fast way to total self-realization. So if you want total control of your mind and more happiness and abundance in your life, then you've come to the right place. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. And if you like what we do here, you find that these videos are valuable to you, then make sure to hit like, leave me a message about the gains that you've gotten from the work here on this channel, and share this with your friends. Let's get this message out to the world about how easy and wonderful life can be if we just learn how to let go. Now, I just got back from Albania and doing a 9-day photography workshop that I participated in there. And I just had an incredible breakthrough in overcoming shyness, my own shyness, and social anxiety. You see, when I was a little kid, I had become accustomed to being self-reliant, just being by myself, entertaining myself. I was perfectly happy doing that. But in that, I sort of developed a sense of disconnection and separation from others, like even to the extreme degree that I even felt sometimes like I must have been brought here by aliens because I just don't get other people and they don't get me. And I developed this separation to the point where I just didn't talk to people. I was just very closed to myself and so on. Now this brought certain challenges, obviously, in my life and things I wanted to do in my life. Like one of my first jobs out of high school, I was working at Ritz Camera. This is a big camera chain that used to be all across the US. And when I started working there and was getting into photography, I was really excited about it. And I remember running home one day with a couple of VHS tapes that were produced by Nikon about some of their camera bodies. And they had these well-known photographers that were demonstrating the camera and just showing it in action. And one of these videos, I saw this photographer walk up to a fisherman and get in close, get a nice portrait of this guy just, out in the real world. And it was an amazing portrait. But as I was watching this going, wow, I wish I could take a picture like that. Really what was on my mind was, how do you just walk up to somebody like that and ask to take their portrait and get into that sort of dynamic with them? I couldn't figure that out. Now, fast forward about 20 years, this was something that I was really still interested in doing, these environmental portraits. And so 20 years later, I'm sitting in this big auditorium because I'm attending a presentation, a demonstration of some Nikon software, for image editing. And the person who was up on stage giving this presentation was a long-time documentary photographer. And as he's showing off the software and how he uses it on different images, he's showing a number of environmental portraits of people just, out in the world that he had done. And I'm looking at this collection of portraits that he's, showing. And that urge of, gee, I want to do that. That rose up in me again. And I couldn't wait until the end of the presentation which afterwards I ran up to the stage and I asked the guy, how do you do that? What do you say to these people? How do you present yourself to ask them to take their portrait like that? And he just said, well, I don't know. I don't know what I say. I just do it. That's all. I was left sitting there thinking, gee, well, that's helpful. Not. So I was still left stumped about, well, how do I do this? And again, I still really wanted to get into this. It was something that I found very interesting, taking pictures of people. And I've seen great photographers like Steve McCurry and, all the portraits that he's done. I was like, oh, I wish I could do that. So this has literally been a lifelong dream for me to fulfill. And last year, I took my first photography workshop with the same people. I went to Albania, just like I did this time. I went last year. And conducting this workshop were two longtime professionals. One was a fine art and press photographer who worked for magazines, and she did stuff like photograph Mark Zuckerberg before he launched Facebook. As he was up and coming, she did people like that. Those types of portraits. And the other guy, he's a longtime photojournalist and documentary photographer. So I thought, well, this being my first workshop, and I'm working with this caliber of people, I want to ask them, how do you approach people? How do you do this? And I got a few tips. I got started. And last year, I got my feet wet. And I took, I think, a grand total of 3 portraits on that trip. And 2 of them I loved. So I got a taste of it. And I came back with a couple of portraits. I was like, hey, I'm proud of doing that. And yet, I still felt kind of awkward about it, because I remember immediately after the workshop had ended, I was spending one last day in Tirana, Albania, and I was walking down the street, and I passed by a guy that looked kind of interesting. And I remember I walked by, I looked at him, he looked at me, I kind of looked away and kept on walking, but then I was like, oh, I want to take his picture. So I kind of turned around awkwardly, walked back to him. He's still looking at me. And I asked to take his portrait, and I did, and it didn't really come out that good. But I was thinking, oh, well, I did a couple, but that was kind of awkward. And I don't know, I kind of left it there. And for the past year, I've still been photographing, but I never really went up and engaged with people to do these portraits out on the street. So this year, coming back to Albania, I decided, you know what? I'm going to jump into this with both feet. And in my project that I'm going to do this year, I'm really going to focus on doing portraits. I'm going to take a bunch of them. And I did. And it was amazing, the experience. I just dove right into it from day one. And here's what I found. Well, first of all, I found it was easy because of releasing. I didn't have to figure out what I was going to say, how I was going to present myself. All that I knew was that in the past, if I ever thought about walking up to somebody like this, I had a very strong feeling that would come up. Like a social anxiety sort of a feeling. My heart would start racing, and I'd start getting flushed, and start feeling this sense of self-consciousness coming up in me. But I realized that's just a feeling. And I know how to let go of feelings from what I've learned from releasing. And all I have to do now is just apply it with this. Just get rid of the feeling. And if the feeling is out of the way, what could I do then? So that's all I did. I just used the method to release, which I will give you a demonstration of in a little bit. I'll show you how to get the feelings out of the way, all the fear, all the anxiety, all that sense of what do they think about me? It's just a feeling. So that it's out of the way, and then what's left is just freedom and confidence and just a sense of self, right? Any of us can do this. And so just by releasing, I found that was easy. And even though I'd been comfortable in the past just being with myself and all of this, I found a whole new sense of love and connection by just walking up to somebody, striking up a conversation, getting to know them, sharing a bit with them, just sharing a moment with them, and at the culmination of that, taking their picture. And so I just did this again and again and again, and got not just a few great portraits this last trip, but a whole bunch. Now, a couple of days into this workshop, we were, each of us who were participants in it, doing a presentation to show off the work that we were doing so far, and also, share what our intention was, because the whole point of the workshop wasn't just the photographs. We were learning how to take the photographs, edit down the collection that we have taken into a cohesive group that tells a specific story, and then sequence and lay those out and create a book to share the story in photographs. And at the end of the workshop, it was a culmination of making a book. So our first presentation, we were just showing the work that we had so far. And when it was my turn, I was sharing some of my portraits, and also I was sharing the story that I would just told to you about how I used to be shy. I couldn't walk up to people on the street. But, now this is my intention. This is what I came here to do on this trip. So I shared it with the other participants, and a couple of days later, one of those came up to me and he said, what you were sharing the other night really touched me, because I too am a very shy person. And the last few days, I've been watching you just walk up and easily talk to people like they were your best friend. And how you just did that so easily. I figured that you'd been doing that for years, and you had lots of experience doing this. I had no idea you'd never done this before. And it was great hearing that feedback, because I looked back, I was like, wow, yeah, it's just really, really easy. And I told him, I did it just by letting go. I didn't do it by calculating in my mind or having a plan of what am I going to say? How am I going to present myself? What do I do if they say this? Or how do I handle if the situation goes this way or that way, right? There was no reasoning or intellectualizing behind it. It was simply getting the feelings out of the way, the social anxiety, the fear, the sense of pressure, all of that, just removing the feelings. And then everything that came out of that was just intuitive. It was just natural. And it was great to hear that feedback, that it was just so successful, like I looked like I'd been doing that for years. And this goes to say that something I've always pointed out in a lot of these videos on this channel is that unlike a lot of people that talk about the law of attraction and their approach of you have to reprogram your mind for success, or you have to add in positive feedback, positive thoughts, reinforce yourself with positivity. It's total garbage, that approach. It doesn't work that way, because all you have to do is remove the negativity, the negative feelings. And once they're out of the way, what's inside of you is inherently positive. and is unlimited in its capacity. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, needs to be added. All you have to do is just remove the negativity. And of course, those of you who are familiar with Lester Levinson, the spiritual master whose work we continue to put out to the world here on this channel and through the power of quiet, that's exactly what he said. All you need to do is just remove the negative feelings, and then you become self-obvious as to who you are and just how powerful you are. And that's the beauty of this work. So with that being said, let me show you, give you a taste of how you can remove the negative feelings, right? The anxiety, the fear, that, I need to hold myself back. I need to stay hidden, play small. I can't let myself be seen. That's dangerous. You know, a lot of these feelings, they're either conscious or a lot of them run unconsciously underneath the surface. But all the same, we can pull up these conscious and unconscious feelings and remove them and free ourselves to go on to do great things in life. So, think about putting yourself out there. Right? Maybe it's walking up to somebody, a stranger on the street, somebody that you find, oh, they're kind of interesting. I want to talk to them. Or maybe, you know, you're looking to ask somebody out on a date, right? That can really stir up that same sort of feeling of, oh, what if they say no? Or, you know. So just think about a situation where you just want to walk up and talk to somebody. And you feel shy. What am I going to say? What are they going to say? Right? So just put yourself in that situation right now. Just imagine that. Now, like I said, it's not about going to your mind and getting an answer from there. You know, what do I say? How do I do this? Because guess what? Your mind doesn't know. All your mind is a recording and playback machine. It just records things and it plays it back to you. But we ask it for information that it doesn't have. And it's like looking in an empty file cabinet or an empty drawer for an answer that isn't there. But we keep going back to that empty drawer and looking again and again and again and again. And it's a waste of time. This is why, like in my case, I spent decades looking for an answer, trying to figure out, well, how do I do this? And I never found out. Because guess what? My mind didn't have an answer. All right? So it's about getting out of your mind. See, if your mind is a recording and playback machine, and that's all it does from the neck up, and there's no erase button up there, right, to erase that negativity. But where you can erase the negativity, like the limiting thoughts or the negative feelings, where you can start to erase them is from the neck down, in your stomach or chest area. So again, think about putting yourself in a situation, right, where you expose yourself. You go up and talk to somebody, just out of the blue. And what I want you to do is, as you're imagining yourself doing that, just in that moment, opening up your mouth, and they see you, you're looking at them, I want you to just close your eyes and put your head down towards your stomach or chest. And notice if there's a tightness or contraction in your stomach or chest right now. Kind of a clenching feeling, kind of like a sort of a feeling, right? You notice something like that? Now what that is there's a feeling there, and it's a feeling that's already inside of you. But right now you're pushing down on that feeling, because that's what most of us tend to do. When we have an uncomfortable feeling, right, like an anxiety or a fear, we don't like it. It's like, oh, this is disturbing. So we push it down, we suppress it. And that's suppressing the feeling. Now you feel in your body as this tightness in your stomach or chest. And as long as you suppress it, it's going to remain there. And that limitation that's in your mind is going to remain. So let's do the opposite. So right now, with your eyes closed, your head down, just focusing on that tightness in your stomach or chest, open up an imaginary window or door right in front of that feeling. And now, whatever that tightness is, just see that as energy. And imagine that energy now going out that door. Just imagine it passing through that door, just leaving, right? Whatever that looks like to you. You might see it as smoke moving out that door and just evaporating out, disappearing. You might see it as light passing through and dissipating, or bubbles coming out and popping and disappearing. However you choose, just imagine that energy going out that door right now, right in front of that contraction. Just watch it leave. And watch it leave a little bit more. And watch it leave a little bit more. And some more. And even more. And just open up and let that energy pass through. You don't need to figure out anything about it. You don't need to know where it came from, who gave it to you, why it's there. It's just energy passing through. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just energy. So just watch it leave out that imaginary window or door a little bit more. And a little bit more. And more. And even more. And let it pass through even more. And even more. And a little bit more. And just let go pushing down on that feeling. Let go pushing down on that energy. And just let it leave. And even more. All right? Now notice what you're experiencing now. Just notice how you feel. You feel a little bit lighter, right? Less tight, less suppressed, more open, right? Maybe you could even feel yourself breathing a little bit easier. And then just having more of a sense of lightness, more of a sense of confidence. But basically, all we're looking for is just a lighter feeling. You notice that? And that's all we need to notice right now. It's showing us that we're moving in the right direction. Because we could either suppress our feelings or we could release them. Or what a lot of us tend to do also is we run away from them. We try to escape them. But even another thing that we tend to do is express them. Like sometimes, we build up so much that we just have to scream and yell, or we cry or whatever. Right? It's kind of like building up a pressure pot until the valve has to open and relieve the excess pressure. But once that pressure is down enough, then the valve closes and then we go back to building up that pressure again. So even expressing ourselves, sometimes I could feel like a bit of a relief or release. But it turns out to be a never-ending cycle where we're never really fully let go. But as we practice this, just open up the door, letting that energy go, letting that feeling go, that anxiety, just energy that we've been sitting on for years and years and even decades. Most of the time, suppressing it, running away from it, expressing it. But now, as we experience, we could release it. We could just let it go. And notice what happens. We feel lighter. We feel more at ease. We feel more positive. We feel better. And also get this. Now, think about that same situation, just walking up to somebody out of the blue and talking to them. And this time, see if you feel as self-conscious or uncertain of yourself as you did a few moments ago. Or do you feel now a bit more confident and a bit more of a sense of, oh, I can do that. Yeah, I can. Notice that? And what this is showing you is that just by letting go of the negative feelings, that negative energy, that changes your thinking. That quiets your mind. And it gets that negativity, those limiting thoughts. Oh, I can't do that. That's going to be too tough. Or they're going to say no. Or what about this? What if they hit me? All these thoughts that run in our head, they're fueled by the feelings. But once the feelings are gone, those thoughts subside. And then what's left over, like I said, is something that is inherently positive. A sense of I can. A sense of confidence. A sense of peace and imperturbability. And as we keep letting go, we just get more and more and more imperturbable. Now, this is just the simplest of demonstrations. If you really want to learn more about how you can dig this stuff out, not just a little bit, but in big chunks, then you can take the 21-day self-study course. I'll put a link to it in the description below and also up here. And this takes you through Lester's method thoroughly, like all the essential tools that you need to know about how the mind works and how to let go of all of the negativity that you've been holding on and carrying with you in your life and just relieving yourself of it, right? It shows you exactly how to do it. Or you can join me live. This July, I'm doing a 6-week live course called the Wealth Manifestation Course, where I show you how to let go of holding yourself back in all sorts of ways. Not just in personal encounters, but also holding yourself back from abundance. So you're free to take on more and more in the world and do more. And this is provable. So if you want to prove it to yourself, I'll put a link to that up above and also in the description below. And check it out. Prove it to yourself. See for yourself who you really are beyond those thoughts and feelings that get in the way. They are not you. They're just something that you created, and you don't have to listen to those anymore. You can get those out of the way and just be yourself.